I'm Bob Dishman, and I was asked by the mission committee to lead a mission team down to Uruguay to install a heating system and build in Linda Parker's house. Their home has very little heat in it. Linda suffers from fibromyalgia, which is a very problem that causes aches and pains, and when you get up in the morning and your breath condenses in the house, the cold is very aggravating to her, and they consequently have to wear layers and layers of clothes to be comfortable. And so joining the mission committee, if you don't think these people work very hard, 15 minutes after I'd been in my first meeting, they had asked me to take this trip. Somewhat reluctant there at the beginning to do that, but finally consented, never knowing that Uruguay was a 9-hour overnight flight out of Miami. It was on the other side of Brazil when I got out to my geography. But it was a good trip, easy trip. There were 4 of us from this church that left, and Mike Wozniak and Tammy Roberts and her daughter Megan accompanied me on the trip. We did have some help that came out of Texas. Linda's daughter and son-in-law brought their baby and came to the camp at the same time, along with a electrician out of the home church of Bill and Linda Parker in Arkansas. And so we teamed up down there at the site to get this job done. Right here, though, I'd like to say something about this church. This is a very loving and giving church. We needed to raise $7,500 very quickly in order to be able to buy the equipment for this installation, and $2,000 was sent over from the Arkansas church, which again is Bill and Linda's home church. And very easily we raised the other $5,500 here in this church, and I just can't say enough of thank yous to the people that helped with this. It was really an astounding thing to me, just people bringing me money, not even asking for it, others saying if you don't get enough, call me, I'll get you some more. And I'm just very glad to be a member out here. We wrestled around with the design of the church and finally picked one, and this is what got the $7,500 price tag. Well, here we are in Montevideo, Uruguay, the 4 of us, and I know when we were commissioned, I'm just imagine that many of you wondered how in the world could these 4 people go down there and put a heating system in one home in 1 week. And we were able to do that. They've been warm all winter, and so we're very grateful for the opportunity to be able to do it. I can only tell you very little bit about Uruguay. I know they've got an airport and a road that leads to the camp and back. Other than that, we work the entire week, 8 hours on Monday, 8 hours on Tuesday, 10 on Wednesday and Thursday. The airplane left Friday night at 9 o'clock, and we worked all day Friday up until the time we had to leave and go to the airport. But this was a hard-working crew, and I'll tell you this, if you go on a mission trip with them, you buy you a new pair of boots, get in them deep, and tie them tight, because they really work. So we had a great time. We did get to go to church with the Parkers, and this is a very small church, but very active, and I'm sure very spiritually deep. This is a picture of Bill Parker that is in his shop. Okay. And Linda, here the wife, and Linda is the one with the fibromyalgia. A picture of their home. They're at the camp, and the camp is very similar to the one in Guatemala that Johnny and Maria worked. Large campus and nice buildings. This is the field house, is we would call it, but it's their full-size gymnasium, and where you have the kitchen, and for whatever it's worth, Mike and I dominated the ping pong table. I told you before that we had help from Texas, and here she is. And the guy from Arkansas is an electrician and had cut his thumb at the end of the trip, but he was a great help, and I'll talk a little bit more about both of them in a moment. Megan up there painting the house, and she and her mom was doing this while we went to get the parts for the job. And here Mike is loading up some of the piping that we had, and there's one more picture of that, I guess. Yes, and he's on the other side, proud of his work. This is a tragic thing here, and you see it all over the country. Here's a guy eating out of a garbage can down there across the street from the parts place. And what I did, I guess, is I'm ashamed of now I think about it, but I took a picture and turned my back and just said, well, poor guy. But loading these pictures up, I got to thinking, well, what about the Good Samaritan? What would he done? And it just makes me feel like that you can't do enough for what God has given us. And I just want to reemphasize that to myself as many others. We got back, and there's the boiler that we installed there at the house. And Mike here is leveling out and putting in one of the radiators that went in had two bedrooms and one office that the radiators went in. And here's Tammy leveling it out and putting the brackets on the whole of that radiator. And there is the radiator. Tammy's up working on the inside piping now. We ran the piping inside the porch there, and Tammy's working on that. And the piping went from the inside of the porch to the outside of the house and wrapped around, as you'll see in a moment. Here Bill is also securing a bracket for the piping. Mike's got our bending tool, which is a piece of stove wood. There's the finished piping inside that drops off to the fan coil unit in the living room, and the other going to the outside. That is a picture of the fan coil unit that they use now to heat the central part of the house. This is the piping on the outside. The ditch was pre-prepared before we got there, thank goodness, and so they were able just to lay the piping in the ditch. Okay. And more of that. And this is the connection mechanism that we had to put the piping together. A little closer up, they have just pinch pliers that push the thing together. Here I am sitting in my supervisory role, and I've got it redlined right here. This is about all I can do. Megan, what a little girl. You can see the boot that she had on her foot there. She had surgery on that foot prior to going down there, and she's now cutting the styrofoam to insulate the porch. And up on the ladder with the boot, putting the insulation in between the studs. This is how she gets down off the ladder. But it didn't bother her. He went on and took a nap. We are at supper on this picture. Mike is praying, and it looks like Linda's over there talking on the phone. This is the group. We had, besides the baby, Linda and Bill's daughter and son-in-law came down to help us from Texas, and the guy on the right is the electrician from Arkansas. He did not do anything with us while we were there for that week, with the exception of building the swing set, which you'll see in the next picture. But after we left, what he had to do was to wire up the control mechanism for the system, and so that really kind of completed the job. But the baby from Texas is not quite sure. But that's the end of the pictures. But I guess I would add this, that the Parkers, they're probably going to take a leave of absence for 1 year, but the house is ready for them when they come back. The system has worked very well for the entire time. Thanks for the opportunity.